Welcome to Lesson 6 of Unit 25, Science in St. Louis. In this lesson, students will be answering the question, how do artifacts and specimens help us understand animal traits and survival? In this lesson, students will review the idea that organisms inherit traits from their parents. Students will also see that if an organism inherits a trait that helps it to survive, it's more likely to pass that trait on to its offspring. Over time, successful traits can become predominant in groups of organisms. In the Engage portion of this lesson, students will observe photographs taken from the City Museum in St. Louis of different organisms. They'll answer the questions, what do you notice? What questions do you have about these organisms? In the Explore part of this lesson, you'll start by showing students this photograph. You'll ask, what are some of the similarities you see between this family of ladybugs, and what are some of the differences you observe? This image will segue students into an activity where they'll see how traits are passed on from parent to offspring. To set up this activity, you'll need the family tree, the clear cups, and the pom-poms. These pom-poms represent different traits that the grandparents in this activity possess, so you'll put the different color pom-poms in each of the cups. You'll then show the grandparents passing on their traits to the parents by placing 3 pom-poms of each color into the specific parent cups. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to show students how the offspring inherit traits. You'll randomly select 3 pom-poms from mom and 3 pom-poms from dad and put it on the offspring. Students will repeat this for each of the 4 offspring. This activity will show us how we get a variation in traits, similar to the ladybug picture we started this activity with. Students should end up with 4 offspring with different combinations of traits. After students complete the activity, they'll go to their student pages and they'll answer the following questions, like how do the offspring compare to each other, and why do the offspring look the way they do. In the Explain portion of this lesson, students will read Behold the Beautiful Dung Beetle. They'll learn that parents don't only just pass off traits that affect an organism's appearance. They'll discuss the different traits that parents pass on that help their offspring to survive. In the Elaborate section of this lesson, students will focus on the fact that some traits help organisms to survive. Students will complete a natural selection lab. You'll need the red ants, the black mulch, and tweezers found in your kit. You'll first ask students to describe the traits that the 2 different ants have and how these traits might help these ants to survive. You'll then distribute containers that have the black mulch, the red ants, and the black ants to each group. You'll give each group a pair of tweezers, explaining to them that they have 10 seconds to eat as many ants as they can. To simulate eating, students will use the tweezers to pull out different ants from the mulch. At the end of the 10 seconds, they'll count how many red ants they have and how many black ants they have. Conduct enough trials so each student in the group can have a chance to eat their own ants. Then have them go to their student journal and find different patterns in the data that they collected. Students should see the trend that more red ants were picked out of the black mulch than the black ants. This should support the idea that ants that inherited the trait that made them the color black had a better chance of survival than ants that inherited the red trait. To continue this conversation, students will do an online simulation of a similar lab. In the simulation, students will see that the environment can affect the desired traits that organisms pass along to their offspring. For example, as the background becomes oranger, orange will become the desired trait for the parents to pass on. At the end of the simulation, you can show students the optional video, Living Things Change. In the Evaluate portion of this lesson, students will complete a formative assessment going over how organisms inherit a variety of traits and how these traits can help them to survive. They will use the phenomenon of the structures that a stick bug has to answer the following questions. They'll discuss traits inherited from the stick bug's parents, and then traits that help that stick bug to survive. By the end of this lesson, students will have constructed scientific arguments to support the claim that some characteristics of organisms are inherited from parents and some are influenced by the environment. They will have reviewed that internal and external structures are inherited from their parents and help support survival, growth, behavior, and reproduction. And they will have used evidence to support the claim that different characteristics help organisms survive and pass along their traits.